Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I would especially like to welcome our online viewers to the 2024 Election Debrief. So y'all might know that there's a little election happening this weekend for DNC Chair. And I had the honor of working in the DNC technology team, not once, but twice. First, when Governor Dean became chair in 2005, and then again after President Obama won his first term. And so that means that I know that the technology team at the DNC is really darn important. That also means that I know that the work is a little bit under the radar, which sometimes is a little bit too literal, with engineers at the DNC sort of in the basement. Maybe there's some mice there. But nonetheless, I had this crazy idea, which is we know tech is really important. So why don't we ask the folks who are running for chair about technology? And our amazing friends at Higher Ground Labs willingly agreed to host this forum, which came together incredibly quickly. And so thank you to both Higher Ground Labs as well as all the chair candidates for taking, I know they have their time is really squeezed this week. So thank you so much for joining. And with that, I have the amazing opportunity to introduce a man who needs very little introduction to give some remarks. And with that, I will pass it over to Governor Howard Dean.
Thank you very, very much. And thanks to Higher Ground for putting this on. I'm going to give a 2-second pitch, and then I'm going to introduce the moderators. This is not a job that's inside the Beltway. It is not your job to worry about for those of you who are the person who wins, it's not your job to worry about whether Congress or the Senate is Democratic. We already have 2 competent committees that do that. It's your job to get state representatives, state school board members, city council people. That's why we get our ass kicked by the Republicans. It's not because we run bad campaigns. It's because we let the consultants inside the Beltway tell us what to do. We cannot do that anymore. We've got to be outside the Beltway, and we've got to work. So when somebody knocks on the door of somebody, it's not 5 weeks before the election. It's 5 months, and it's their election, so they get to know people. And that's worked in very red states, and that's what the DNC really has to focus on. So that's my pitch. Let me introduce the 2 moderators. Harry Khanna is one, he's a DNC member from Virginia. He's a lawyer, a computer program, and formerly was on the staff of the DNC as the senior software engineer focused on voter protection. He holds an advanced engineering degree from Hopkins, a law degree from Columbia Law School. Too bad he's so dumb, right? He's an Eagle Scout. He lives in Richmond with his wife, Lisa, and his dog, Mishka. In his free time, he enjoys karaoke, writing code, and building electronics. Betsy Hoover is the founder and managing partner of Higher Ground Labs. Under her leadership, HGL has invested in over 70 startups that support progressive infrastructure and foster innovation. Betsy was the first online organizer of the DNC in 2010. She worked on the 2008 and 2012 Obama campaigns and was a founding partner of 270 Strategies. She lives in San Francisco with her husband, Jeremy, and their 4 kids, Isaac, Miles, Sadie, and Jonah. In her free time, I can't believe there is any with that resume. In her free time, she enjoys hiking, skiing, soccer, and time with the family and friends. Let me turn it over to our 2 wonderful moderators, and let's let the debate begin.
Thank you so much, Governor Dean, and thank you to all of our candidates for joining us today and for stepping up to lead. As Democrats, we find ourselves in a pivotal moment in our collective journey, and the next Democratic chair is going to play a critical role in determining the future, not only of the DNC as an institution, but truly the direction for our party. Data and technology has arguably never played a more pivotal role in the role of the DNC. The next chair will need to navigate an evolving media landscape, leverage AI and other technological trends, modernize our technical infrastructure, and address growing concerns around data privacy and security. The chair's decision in how to navigate these challenges will directly impact our ability to reach voters, mobilize volunteers and donors, and ultimately deliver electoral outcomes. So we are so excited to have this conversation with you today. So here's the rules of engagement. We have 45 minutes together. Harry and I have a set of questions that will guide our discussion. These questions were submitted by DNC members and members of the broader community. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted them. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. There is a timer, and Harry and I will help enforce the time limit to ensure that everyone has equal time to answer. So with that, let's get started.
Thank you, Betsy. It's my honor to introduce all 8 of our wonderful candidates for DNC Chair. Please hold your applause till the end. First, we have Dr. Quintessa Hathaway, author, scholar, and entrepreneur. We have Mr. Ken Martin, Chair of the Minnesota DFL and President of the Association of State Democratic Committees. Governor Martin O'Malley, former Governor of Maryland. Mr. Jason Paul, attorney. Faiz Shakir, Democratic political advisor. Nate Snyder, former Homeland Security official. Ben Wickler, chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party. And Marianne Williamson, author and activist. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to give an opening statement and ideally work in an answer to the following question. Thinking about how our party's technology has evolved over the last decade, what are the most successful innovations you've seen, and where do you think we've underinvested and need to do more? Governor O'Malley, we'll start with you. 60 seconds.
Sure. I think one of the areas where we've done very well is in grassroots fundraising. Some people would say we solicit too much. I think the areas where we're falling down is in online communications with trusted messengers in the places where people get their information. As a mayor and as a governor, I worked every day with new technology, and recently at the Social Security Administration had to cut over from a clunky Verizon system to a AWS Connect, which actually gives us the capacity to have a CRM one day there very soon. And it seems like there's a lot of tech debt at the DNC that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Paul, 60 seconds.
So the Act Blue button that lets you donate with basically 1 or at most 2 clicks has been a game changer in our ability to raise money. I agree, and I've said a lot in this campaign, that it's been a game changer in a way that maybe is now being slightly abused. But the fact that we're able to have so many people, 15 million of them, who can give to our party with a single click gives us the ability to do a lot of the things that we want to do. Where we've fallen down and where I'm was really hoping for I have this dream is if you knew someone's voter file information and their donor information and their socials, you basically would know all you need to understand them to a very serious degree. And there have been a lot of promises that we're going to get that level of integration. We've never gotten that level of integration. If we get it, there's nothing we can't do.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Shakir.
When you think about tools, they work when you have a content vision. What do you want to do with the tools? We have millions of volunteers that are sitting out there ready to be mobilized, particularly in a moment with Donald Trump cutting Medicaid. So what do you do with it? You got volunteers sitting around. You don't just sprinkle fairy dust on a Mobilize link or a Act Blue link or a YouTube link. You got to go give them something to do. And at this moment, right now, if you want to build a grassroots party at the DNC, you're doing actions on the ground. We should be raising money right now for National Meals on Wheels Association, Head Start for America. Just raise money for them and build engagement. Do actions on the ground with people. Send videographers. This is what I'm doing right now with More Perfect Union. We're putting videographers on the ground right now. Tomorrow to tell the stories of Medicaid administrators, Head Start officials who are feeling the pain of it. So the tools are useful if you've got a content vision. Right now, I don't think we do enough to think about tools as servicing a content vision that's a democratic grassroots DNC.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder.
Well, I think this is a really great question. However, as a national security expert, I just keep on hearing we're operating within the norms. The whole entire playing field has ultimately changed. So, I mean, we're facing a rising threat of extremism right now, and the critical gap that we have right now is on combating online hate, fear, and disinformation. And so what we need to do is support the local leaders and rebuild our infrastructure to address with this. Because look, extremists have exploited disinformation in a way that we're now seeing. And so we need to modernize our digital strategies, dismantle the spread of the falsehoods, and we do that by investing in infrastructure, like I said, education, community leadership, but also making sure we're improving our information sharing structure. And what that means is building an analytics center within the DNC that allows for analysis that can actually pinpoint the origins of the mis and disinformation and provide actionable guidance to states and allies on how to combat it moving forward. So I think that's critical and one of the
Thank you,
gaps
Mr.
that
Snyder.
we're majorly facing.
Mr. Wickler.
Thanks. Thank you, Harry and Betsy, Governor Dean, and Josh. This forum is critical because we've gotten lapped, and we've gotten lapped, which is painful because we have been the party of innovation. I'm here now thinking back to 2010 when in the final stretch, I volunteered on the DNC's new media team, writing emails and doing virtual phone bank systems work. And we've moved a lot. Over the last few years, we've made a huge strides in virtual organizing in events like this one that we've pioneered in Wisconsin with the Princess Bride script read. We've had hundreds of thousands of people participate and then turn them into volunteers doing virtual organizing and fundraising. We've expanded in relational organizing that's made a difference, given that it's not just people knocking on doors, but the way that people talk. The democratic data exchange is a huge step forward. Work on message testing and targeting, paid media, earned media. But what we need to do now is recognize that we are entering an era of transformation with AI that could reshape how we listen, how we tell stories, how we organize, how we dig into rich data from rich conversations, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you, Mr. Wickler.
DNC.
Thank you. Ms. Williamson.
Given the incredible failure that we have experienced over this last election cycle, we should not be looking at anything we did as any level of success. And we haven't lost the tech war, we've lost the algorithm war. And we've lost the algorithm war because we have allowed ourselves to become culturally irrelevant. Right now, so much is going on in this country. Right now, you cannot separate culture from politics. And that's what Republicans figured out. They have people out there talking about more than just politics, more than just boring things. They've talked to people about what young men are going through. They talk to people about what's going on in the world. As far as that's concerned, to me, what we should be talking about primarily in terms of the DNC chair is who's going to be best able to go to Silicon Valley and get those tech billionaires back. Tech billionaires used to be ours. We should be talking about AI. We should be talking about crypto. We should be talking about DeepSeek. We are not coming up to the moment. And if we don't come up to the moment, we will not win elections. We need to be far more audacious, far more authentic, and far more now. And that's what would happen if I was DNC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Hathaway.
I thought our question consisted of an opening statement, so let me give an opening statement. Gone are the days of being mousy on the legislative, topical, and kitchen table issues of our time. The Democratic Party must holistically challenge the opposition in dismantling information with a clarity to the nation. We must control the messaging of the hour and day through all media. That should be done through data-driven, research-based, and targeted messaging and marketing. Also, a mass re-education plan shall emerge under new leadership. We have to persuade voters to our values and with full-throated expression as to why one should be in our party. That will require intentional citizenship education and an academic sense and hosting town halls in person and virtually. When I did my congressional campaign, I was the one that created the website. Seeked out the hosts, did the algorithms, all newsletters, all evaluation.
Thank you, Dr. Hathaway.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Ken Martin.
Thank you, Harry, Betsy, Governor Dean, and Josh. I haven't just witnessed tech innovations in our party. I've helped build them. I have served on the National Voter File Co-op the last 13 years, these last 8 years as the chair. I helped to create the Democratic Data Exchange, and I've been at the forefront of years of tech innovation in the Democratic Party. Look, I'm going to make sure that the next DNC changes its approach to media and information. That's day one. We have to compete in the content spaces and in the attention economy. We have to understand that 40% of people in this country avoid the news, yet 90% own smartphones and are barraged by information all day. But But what most people don't understand is that getting the right message to the right spaces also involves doing the stuff that's less sexy, building the tech infrastructure, ensuring we have a robust team of experts and qualified staff, and strengthening the digital backbone of our party. I've done that. As DNC chair, I'll be wearing lots of hats. I'm an organizer at heart, but the work I've already accomplished for the party shows I can approach this role as a CEO of a democratic tech and media enterprise as well.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Betsy?
Thanks, Al. Next question. Many say that our methods of voter contact are increasingly outdated. As we've heard over the past couple of days, voter contact rates on the doors and phones continue to plummet, and our urgent emails and text messages are often seen as spammy. This is the moment to reimagine how we reach people. When you think about the tools needed to effectively reach people where they are, what are the biggest gaps right now? And what does our tech need to make possible? And we'll start with Mr. Wickler.
The biggest thing in communication is trust. And what we've seen from experiment after experiment, from test after test, is that when you hear from someone that you have a trusted relationship with, ideally an actual relationship, but sometimes a parasocial relationship, that makes all the difference. There's a reason why unions make a huge difference in the voting behavior of their members. It's because they have a trust that's built through solidarity and collective action that actually changes people's lives. And when we think about the kinds of tools and technology we need, the thing that we need is to empower millions of people who want to make a difference in elections to be able to connect with and communicate with people that they have trust with in their own lives to be able to make a difference. Work on relational organizing has made a huge difference in Wisconsin and across the country. That needs to be massively scaled up. There's also the digital lives that people lead. And right now, there's not a systematic way to ensure that the places online where people communicate, often with handles and pseudonyms, but nonetheless with real relationships, can translate into an organized effort to win elections and move mountains. Let's build that and let's win.
Thank you, Mr. Wickler. Ms. Williamson?
Our problem is that our model is about marketing and messaging. Our model is about marketing and messaging, and our model needs to be about connection. The things that need to be connected first. Take what's happening right now. People are panicked. People are scared, and they have a right to be with what Trump is doing right now. If I were chair, we would be collating everything every Democratic leader is saying around the country, every organization that is coming up with things that could help, and we would be pushing it out massively. You know, when I ran for president in 2024, I was a sensation on TikTok. And I was a sensation on TikTok because I was real. I was talking about what's really going on. We need to break out of this technocratic conversation we're having. It's not where people are living. So our model, we can't just bombard people with requests for money and telling them things. We need to ask people what they need, and we need to be talking to people about what's going on. Specifically now with what's going on with Trump, we need to be out there. We need to be basically telling people, don't be afraid. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're doing in the House and the Senate.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson.
We're going to be allies of every organization fighting back.
Dr. Hathaway?
I've heard everything that's been said, and I know eventually there'll be some overlap between each and every one of us. But when it comes to us having outdated technology, that is very much so true. There must be a packaging and revision of the new DNC website. It doesn't truly depict where we are in the diversity of our technology. So I think that ought to be the first step that we ought to take to address advancing in our technological apparatus. I'm going to pull from Attorney Paul for just a moment. You know, this whole one size fits all, go find everything on the app. As I took some time here over the last couple of days, there's no true app where everything is coalesced in one place. So if we look at the Mobilize and Act Blue and volunteerism overall and reaching out to our partners, that's one way in which we can begin to bring this thing all together, and everyone is able to go on the website, go on the app, download the app, and be able to get the information they need.
Mr. Martin?
Thank you. Look, if we don't keep investing and pushing forward, we will definitely fall behind and our tech assets will quickly atrophy. Voter contact and persuasion have changed since some of our campaign apps have come onto the market. We need to work with HGL, entrepreneurs, campaign veterans, and staff, volunteers, and donor stakeholders. We should do a gap analysis to figure out what tech we need to develop in-house or externally to win the future. Some systems we've relied on for years can't do everything for every campaign user at all times. We learned this cycle that just outspending our opponents on digital is not enough. We have to get smarter about how we do our digital advertising, increase the efficiency so it's not just spray and pray that it's reaching the right voters, and make it more cost effective for candidates up and down the ballot. While we're spending record amounts on digital advertising cycle after cycle, we've got less and less to show for it, and we are losing ground in actually engaging our voters on digital platforms. Part of my platform is focused on this very issue, coordinating digital buys and creating democratized ad buying in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Governor O'Malley?
Yes, the one veteran congresswoman who's been through a lot of campaigns said to me, I'm all for ground game. And we had a great ground game, if you want to describe that, as knocking on doors with stone tablets for the last 4 weeks of the campaign. She said, but the other guys had been already inside those doors for a year or more, communicating online in places where people go and where they get their information, where they have relationships online. I have led in this campaign for DNC chair with the proposal to stand up at the DNC within 40 days an information war room. That information war room will become the hub for better ongoing constant digital communications with real-time analytics and also with social listening so we understand where the misinformation and disinformation is being pumped out. And as part of that, we need to recruit trusted messengers, influencers, creators, and their networks to communicate over the long haul so that when we contact voters in the stretch, they understand the narrative.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Paul?
So I completely agreed with everything Chair Wickler said about relationships. I think one of the things that we need to do when building those relationships is realize that if you have 2 years before the next election, you can start to build those relationships with people on the ground now so that they're strangers now, but when they go back in 2 years, they won't be. And I know that's not the techiest of answer, but I really do think that sort of starting with having more humans, talking to humans in the real world is the right place to start. And then you build out sort of all of the nice tech bells and whistles. And I really think that it is possible to get sort of the one app to rule them all, but maybe it has to be more than one. I don't know. What I do know is that the technology lets us sort all the information, but then we have to use the information we have to have real relationships with people.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Schneider? I'm sorry, Mr. Shakir is next.
We're getting late in the game in elections. We're relying on paid canvases to fill the gap and do a lot of voter persuasion. It's not ideal. Why are we doing it that way? Because we don't have volunteers. We haven't built a grassroots DNC. We haven't given opportunities for people to engage with us. When I was at the ACLU for 2 years during the first Trump administration, we built thousands and thousands of volunteers during moments of Muslim ban and family separation that translated into a huge small dollar donor base. That small dollar donor base built up state affiliates all over the country. The know-how of how to do online to offline organizing plus digital email, how to use the digital email list was it's something we invested in and helped spread throughout the entire infrastructure. That's what we need now. You've got to do organizing events on the ground. You got to give people a road in to build into the DNC and then build into the state affiliates the opportunity for them to use email and data that we would share with them, give them an opportunity to engage that list so that they're also cultivating interesting events.
Thank you, Mr.
in a lot of different ways.
And Mr. Schneider.
Well, I think what you described is just a symptom of the larger issue. We need to reimagine and reevaluate what relationships are with voters. So I think digital strategy definitely plays a part in this. I think people sometimes now have stronger relationships with people who they know online that they haven't met in real life. And so I think we need to take account of that. Secondly, we also need to look at, as Governor O'Malley mentioned, we need to know the landscape a lot better, whether it's an analytical war room, et cetera. That is critical so we know how to navigate. And then secondly, we need to empower those who know this environment the best. And we've failed at that. And what I mean by that is we need to elevate youth leadership in these roles. They know that environment. They're natural users. And also, they're not burdened by the culture of, hey, we need to be risk averse on everything. We need to realize that it's easy to fail and actually find a fail online until we find something that works. Things move at machine speed, and so we can get creative, and we need to unlock that potential. And I think starting with youth organizers in the digital space is a big answer to that.
All right, this next question, there was a lot of interest in this. We actually got this a few times. Over the next 4 years, Democrats need to make critical investments in our technical infrastructure to ensure access to data and good tools. There's a question of where that should be housed. Should our core voter file data and technology belong to private sector firms, or should it belong to the national and state parties? Mr. Ken Martin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's really important. We will never privatize the voter file. We also need to recognize that we've already found a way to leverage data to help all of us through the National Voter File Co-op. So simply, party control of the file is necessary to ensure that the file is always available, of high quality, and not subject to the whim of a private company. In nearly every aspect of our ecosystem, we have seen vendors with the best of intentions enter this space, stand up data and technology products and systems, and then have to substantially change or revise their product or service due to financial pressures or issues in delivery. They decide to leave politics to focus on other markets because it's fraught for them politically or financially, or they shut down because they can't make a go of it due to the cyclical nature of political spending. The voter file must remain stable, be updated frequently regardless of the part of the cycle we're in, and remain available to our candidates and campaigns at all times, no matter what, even if it's not financially viable as a business.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Governor O'Malley.
Yeah, this is a hugely important question. And I believe that it absolutely, positively needs to stay with the states and the national party. I am the only candidate in this race, I do believe, who has published all of my donors, been totally open, been totally transparent. This party needs to be on guard against very wealthy interests moving underneath this campaign, whose agenda just could be to take our voting files and monetize it for personal gain. I've called on all of the candidates in this race to make public their donations before the vote and not after it. Thanks.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Paul.
So I want the party to own their voter file. I also think that sort of one of the debates we're having, though, is if you had a question of what's more important, the voter file or Act Blue, I don't think it's a close call. I think it's Act Blue. I understand that if you could rejigger it so that you could have a new payment processor, and if you had a new payment processor, it would be easier to replace than entirely replacing the voter file. But in terms of where people are, in terms of being able to do the things that we need to do with the voter file, if we were cut off from our ability to get donations, it would become incredibly difficult. I think we need more party control of almost all of the implements that we're using, because I don't think there's a lot of money to be made in politics, despite what other people tend to think. In the scheme of the industry, it's not that big. That's why, as Chair Martin said, so many people are leaving the space. We need to own all of the tools that we use.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Shakir.
I'm not a fan of outsourcing this. If you believe in the value of the technology, it's insourced. You have the best and brightest working inside the building. You also have states and affiliates that I mentioned having access to the email list and the phone numbers. You're investing in them. You trust them to utilize that data as best as they can. If we're a grassroots DNC, we're assessing them on the growth of those email lists, the growth of those phone numbers, the activity of engagement. That's the beating heart of a Democratic Party. We're in service of others beyond ourselves. And so my view is the technology lives in-house, but that the know-how is spread around an entire organization such that everyone feels an investment into it and wanting it to be not only successful, that we compete amongst ourselves to see who the hell is doing the best at growing our ranks. At the end of the day, that's how we're going to be measured.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder.
I think this is a critical question, but first I just want to respond to what Governor O'Malley mentioned on the challenge of transparency. My campaign seeks to make good on that challenge as well, and we'll be releasing our donors. This is critical. The voter file is the backbone of what's possible with the Democratic Party. I feel strongly uncomfortable on outsourcing it, not only just because we would have to ask permission in some cases to do certain things with it, but just from a security standpoint. I don't have any faith in sort of a private sector or third party controlling our own information and our voters' information, potentially using it for profit, and then also putting certain permissions on it. Do not feel good about that at all, because what we need to do is unlock its potential, and whether it's go through certain co-op models or maybe look at things like open source, it's only possible if the state parties and the party itself has control of the file, and we're not reliant on anybody else.
Thank you. Mr. Wickler.
Voter file ownership staying in state parties and then building out to a national voter file in partnership with state parties with a sealed agreement, a signed agreement with every state party is a bedrock of how we work and how we need to work. This cannot be privatized. And this is my consistent view and something that I know we fight for as state party chairs and that our national party fights for. I'm grateful for Ken Martin's leadership on this. The key thing is that the national party keep investing in building out an extraordinary technology team that can help to make sure that we are adding to and making that voter file more valuable, that we keep acquiring more data so that we can add on and pile on to make sure that when you're a local candidate, you're working with the very best data that our national party has to offer. The DDX is a brilliant solution to making sure that our allies and partners and the party itself can, in a fully legally compliant way, make full use of that data. And I think we need to double and triple down on this investment because it's a classic public good. Candidates will trust that they can work with state parties in coordinating campaigns in the DNC when they know that the data is in the party's hands.
Thank
and
you,
only
Mr. Wickler. Ms. Williamson.
I've been in business for 40 years. And as someone from outside the political system, I come in, I look at the DNC, and I'm telling you, a whole lot smells here. And one of the things that smells here has to do with this data. That data should belong to the state parties. Every time anybody else gets their hands on it, the data is less valuable. So absolutely, it should be bedrock that this belongs to the states. And this is part of an overall paradigm change that absolutely must occur. This shouldn't even just be a decision from some private corporation. The only way that the national party, the only reason even that they should have this data is to keep it safe. It must not be sold. It must not be used for anything except the specific purposes of elections. Right now, this is part of the way that we are actually disempowering the parties, the state parties that we are here to serve. This is one of many areas where we need to look under the hood, and I'm afraid we see some things that aren't very cool, and definitely not ethical.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson. Dr. Hathaway.
I agree that the voter file should remain with the state, and it ought to be delivered through the overall apparatus of the DNC or the Democratic Party as a whole. But as a candidate, I saw when I would look at Van, many of the numbers don't work. There are great areas of improvement that need to occur with this type of technology. Some of the numbers don't work, emails don't work, people have changed information, some of the addresses in the database are inaccurate. I mean, there are flaws there. So I believe that there ought to be a greater analysis of where the gaps are, areas of improvement. We need to do a total analysis of that and then see what else is out there and available for us to bring to the table so that we can have the very best data in order to cut turf and do phone banking and make it more accessible to more candidates, local, state, and federal, so that we can actually get back to the business of winning elections.
Thank you, Dr. Hathaway.
All right, so building off that question, the DNC currently has an advantage over the RNC with a single shared national database of voters and a stronger than ever technical infrastructure. that is maintained by a technical team of over 55 staff. The problem is that staff doesn't really have job security, as we saw by the layoffs at the DNC last fall, making it hard to recruit and retain qualified staff in the long term. What would you do, if anything, to end this boom and bust cycle as it pertains to DNC staff? And we'll start with Mr. Shakir.
The culture morale of organizations are people who want to join them for mission and purpose. We need a working class party. We're losing ground with working class voters. People want to sign up and be part of a winning team. I promise you that we'll have the best people who want to join a team and stick around, work with a unionized workforce. At Bernie Sanders' first presidential campaign in history to have a unionized workforce. We'll do it again. We'll attract really good people, but they want to be there for a cause. Some of these people could get much more money on the outside, but they join us because they say, damn it, that's the organization that I wanted to be a part of, who's fighting for me when no one else is, who sees me when no one else does, who wants to do innovative things and fight for people on the ground. That is our best recruiting. Give them a mission, give them a purpose, say you can do it here, serve people other than profits for corporations. They'll want to join you in a heartbeat.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider.
Thanks. I think we're talking about this in a different paradigm. I think centralizing staff and making sure that we have digital capabilities at the DNC within DC is a good thing. And we need to make sure that we address that and maintain that sustainably. But I think what we need to do even more is push digital staff, digital organizing, those with that tech capabilities, get them enlisted at the community level, get them invested in the state parties. And I think as DNC chair, I would double down on investment on that. I mean, look, we need to improve our infrastructure digitally and also organizationally as well in the states. And I think digital organizing is at the pinnacle of that. So we need to take what we have in DC to an extent and force multiply it into territories in the states. Of course, I do agree with what was mentioned before is respecting the bargaining unit. And I think we need to really have a values conversation on making sure that we're not contracting out this work, making sure it's sustainable and making sure it's part of the bargaining unit moving forward. But I think the real solution is pushing it out to the states, not necessarily building within.
Thanks, Mr. Schneider. Mr. Wickler.
The DNC should be a destination workplace because, as Faz said, it is a place driven by purpose and mission. It should also be a great place to work. This is what we've done in Wisconsin with our unionized team. We currently have 80 staff on the ground. And by on the ground, that is in headquarters, that is across our state, that is with a year-round digital operation. At the DNC, we should be a place where people are excited to build their careers, where they can develop, they can make amazing technology that millions of people use to change the world. It should be a place that's a launch pad for people to go off and do amazing things, as it has been. It should also be a place where folks who have change the world through technology, then aspire to join the elite squad at the DNC to make things that can empower millions of people to have power to get elected, to change elections, to change lives across this country. If we want to change the nature of politics in this country, to be a party that delivers for working people across race and ethnicity everywhere, we need great technology and we need to be a great place to work for those who build that technology. And that's what I plan to do as chair.
Ms. Williamson.
Did you say Williamson? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the thing, guys. I have come to respect and have affection for my fellow candidates. So this is not anything personal. This conversation is so disconnected in the very way that we were disconnected to the American people and they didn't vote for us. Donald Trump is trying to take over our democracy as we speak. If we do our work right, there will be people who get millions of dollars a year in technology who will be begging to work for us. When we get back to the mission here, the purpose, when we become mission driven, this is about fighting off the biggest assault on American democracy, well, certainly in the modern era, and certainly it has never been from within the House before. If we are very clear on what we're doing here every day of the year, we are putting together what he is doing, what Trump is doing, what we are going to do about it, how we can engage people, talking about it in terms of what it's doing to their lives, people will be begging to work for us for free. Notice that's some of what Elon's doing, but best and the brightest is going to be with us when we're doing what we should be doing.
Dr. Hathaway.
Can you restate the question for me, please? Can you restate the question for me, please?
Yeah, sure. The DNC has continued advantage over the RNC with a single national shared database and strong technical infrastructure. This is driven by a technical team of 55 staff. The trouble is this staff does not have job security, as we saw with layoffs at the DNC in the fall, making it hard to recruit and retain qualified staff in the long term. What would you do, if anything, to end this boom-bust cycle as it pertains to DNC staff?
When it comes to job security, oftentimes people are in different stages of their career. They're either novice, mid-career, or in the latter portion of the career, and oftentimes even approaching retirement. If we look at that, we ought to be able to give people contracts that are not just single year, but multiple year contracts. Grow them, give them the professional development, the tools, everything they need, the resources as well in order to develop along the spectrum of their career, so that they know not only they have a job, but they're doing something that's worthwhile and that is contributory to the overall goal of the DNC. I know these things because my last 2 degrees are in educational leadership. So when we look at the whole idea behind leadership, those are just some of the components that are necessary. When you grow people, when you are vested in them, you get the greatest amount of returns from their work, and when you trust their level of expertise. And where there may be gaps, where there may be deficiencies, you create a plan in such a way that they're able to achieve at the maximum level.
Thank you, Dr. Hathaway. Mr. Martin?
Thank you so much. Through the years, I've seen some of our chief technology officers at the DNC, whether it was Lindsay Shue Cortez or Nell Thomas, or of course, Arthur Thompson, work really hard to recruit some of the best technologists to come and work for the DNC. Many of them are making and were making so much more in the private sector, but they came to the DNC because they believed in the mission. They believed in saving our democracy. They believed in fighting back against authoritarianism. They were literally taking a huge pay cut and making big sacrifices in their life because they were there for mission. And I thought it was really disappointing to see what happened at the end of last year with some of the layoffs. And I will say that we lost a lot of good talent, and we have to do our job to make sure that we're living our values and that we're creating a type of culture that both Ben and Faz and others talked about, and not only with our collective bargaining unit, but also with how we're treating our employees. And I want to make sure we can recruit those folks back to the...
Martin. Governor O'Malley?
Yeah, I believe that Marianne Williamson's point was really well taken. I mean, I know we're talking about technology here, but we have a president of the United States who has violated several times the Constitution that he swore to defend and is out to dismantle the Republic. Marianne, thank you for reminding us what the bigger picture is here. There is no way around fully funding the technology department at the DNC. We have to do that, and we have to make sure that it's not subject to kind of the boom bust of the pre-election, post-election kind of accordion approach to staffing at the DNC. We have to make sure that they're staffed, that they're fully funded. As mayor and as governor and at Social Security, I always worked with a unionized workforce. And I also saw very acutely just what a challenge it is to keep good and talented people. The mission, though, is really, really important, but so too must people be able to take care of their families and have greater stability when they make an investment or move. And I also would like to regionalize more of that work at the DNC.
And Mr. Paul.
So assuming anyone should work for free or for half is a bad plan. To do all of these great things that we all want to do at the DNC, particularly with respect to technology, but with respect to all of it, we need to get to a sustainable revenue model so that we know how much money we're bringing in as an ecosystem, not just as this one entity a month, and then we figure out how to spend it. And the way to do that is to really buy in the 20 million people who are this party by either giving or donating, to make them feel like the things we're doing really impact their life on a regular basis. Because if you don't do that, it's almost impossible to say, okay, why are there layoffs at the DNC? Because we ran out of money. Why do we run out of money? Because the election's over and now nobody wants to give to the DNC anymore. If you explain why we need to give the DNC all the time and make it fun, then people will do it.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
This will be our last question. With AI reshaping campaigns and younger voters relying on Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube, how would you, as DNC chair, keep Democrats cutting edge while protecting data in the evolving media landscape? Ms. Williamson, we'll start with you.
Tech is a means to an end. It's not the end. Tech alone, we could have the most spectacular tech in the world, but if it doesn't have content that connects with people, this is not just about reaching out to people. This is about connecting with people. And I feel what I would do is be having a constant conversation with people. First of all, about their lives, about our values, about what we stand for. We would be hip and we would be happening and we would be real. And I also feel, as I said before, a big part of my job would be getting some of these major technologists back on our side, talking about democratic values. So that's what I would be doing. I'd be talking to people where they live. This organization has become so technocratic, sort of rationalistic and polite inside a box that is not the zeitgeist of this moment. Technology alone won't fix that. We have to have imagination. We have to have vision. We need to be what this party used to be, where the cool people are, where the free-thinking people are. When we get back to that, and that is what I will bring to
Ms.
them.
Williamson.
And the technology will be there. I'll make sure of it.
Dr. Hathaway.
We have to do better. We have to do more in addressing the undervoting, non-voting population in this country. When we bring in the youth, when we use the greatest amount of technology to be able to reach them, as well as people of all age groups, even those that do not use digital technology in whatever space or capacity, when we increase the number of voters across this country, activate and register a minimum of 10 million new voters and bring those people into the fold, we will drastically change the direction in which we are going, not only as a party, but as a country. That may be used through a multiple amount of mediums. Social media is just one apparatus. Using a secured database, utilizing a secured website and applications are just other ways in which we can achieve the same end. Under new leadership, we will get that done.
Thank you, Dr. Hathaway. Mr. Ken Martin.
Yeah, look, platforms like Twitch and YouTube streaming are emerging as places where voters are spending their time and attention. If we are not producing content that is conveying our messages from programming like that and only try to figure out how to get a 30-second ad placed in the middle of other content, we are going to lose opportunities to engage in any real way with these voters. Our candidates, campaigns, and organizations have to start thinking about these platforms and emerging ones on the horizon as a way to have real conversations with voters, not just run ads. One thing we need to think about is the difference between leveraging these platforms to run ads and leveraging them for content, messaging, and brand identity. Across online platforms, Democrats tend to run ads rather than focus on longer form streaming content. Republicans actually do both. To adapt, we have to think of this as a whole different medium that requires a both-and approach. Wayne Gretzky used to say that we need to skate where the puck is going to be, not where the puck is right now. I have to use a hockey analogy, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Governor O'Malley.
Yeah, Twitch and YouTube and all of that stuff. When I was at Social Security, we had to pick up the most demoralized workforce up off the mat. And I found the best way to communicate was actually short videos, about a 1 minute length, about things that they cared about. Sound familiar? And some of them were fun, some of them were motivational, some of them were operational. But at the end of my time there, all of those employees said I was the first leader that ever actually spoke with them, that listened to them. So I loved also what Marianne said about hip, happening, and real. In my 100-day plan, there's a couple things that I will announce in those first 100 days and stand up. One of them I've already talked about, which is the Information War Room, that Center for Excellence in Digital Communications. But the other is a commission on the future of this party. What a poor job we do recruiting the next generation into positions of responsibility in this party. We got to become hip, happening, and real for them, and we got to do a better job bringing young natives into this stream.
Mr. Paul.
So, sorry, my time is, oh, there we go. So I would say that I'm probably the Luddite of the group, which is kind of amazing because I don't know whether I'm the youngest candidate. I think I'm the youngest candidate, but I'm not certain, so I don't want to jump ahead. But what I will say is that what we need is community. And while I understand the desire to chase community online, because that's where people are going, I think a lot of times when you get there, what you're going to find is it's not what Democrats mean by community. And when I say that, is a lot of it is just really kind of based in a certain level of meanness that inherently writes people off just by its presence. It doesn't even necessarily mean to, but just sort of you get a bunch of people together online and they're not as community minded as we might want them to be. And so for me, it's still going to be about finding a way to get people to engage together in human physical community while understanding we need to create those content platforms for the people who require
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Shakir.
4 years ago, I launched a media organization called More Perfect Union. And in that 4 years of time, I believed we could build a working class media outfit that would reach millions of people. And we now have 1.3 million plus followers on YouTube. Guess how many the Democratic channel has, which started in 2006. It has 76,000 followers on YouTube. How's that happen? Because you don't prioritize being an editor-in-chief in the role, right? One of the jobs and responsibilities is to say, what kind of content are we posting today? And if any of you've worked at the DNC, you know there's a great research department. There's great video archives of everything that Donald Trump has said. There's no shortage of ways in which you could promote that content. But one of the ways in which you want to kind of start to populate this, and it's going to be important to post a lot of content, it becomes a two-way street. You learn what are the things that animate people, what are the things they gravitate to and find interesting, both in vertical format, long form explainers. Over the period of years, I've found the anger towards Uber drivers about their algorithms, Dollar General store customers. If we do this the right way, we're also going to find what people are most motivated about.
Thank you,
around
Mr.
the Democratic
Shakir.
Party brand.
Mr. Snyder.
Well, I think it boils down to relationship. We need to do a better job cultivating relationships with content creators and those who are on various other forums, and also learn from them how they're using the tools. I know I mentioned, empowering youth, the native users in these environments and letting them lead. I think overall, though, I think the party needs to get over its risk-averse attitude on things when it comes to tech. I mean, we are going to fail a ton of times before we actually find something that catches and succeeded. Because the other side right now is operating without consequence. And once they find something, they double, quadruple down on it. And I'm glad you mentioned AI. I think there's a lesson to be learned from DeepSeek right now. They spent a fraction of the money, $6 million, and came out with a new application, new AI application that is now running laps around, or if not equal to what's on the market. We spend billions of dollars through certain models and certain money, and yet we're not getting the same sort of thing. I think we can apply that analogy on how we're also applying our politics, spending a ton and then outspending our opponent 5-1, but not actually coming out winning.
Mr. Wickler.
I've had the chance to oversee and work with great technologists at Avaz, Change.org, Move On, my own podcast at Wisdems. And the core lesson for me is that what you need to do is build a culture of curiosity, innovation, experimentation, and iteration, knowing that many things won't work, so you need to try even more things. We need an innovation lab at the DNC that works with our technology team, the data team, digital organizing, communications, but also helps train people across our organization and empower people to actually build tools that allow them to do the things that they know need to happen. With AI, the most powerful programming language is now English. We can build tools to do anything that we can imagine, and it doesn't have to be constrained by the number of developers on our team. Our developers can help to make sure that our code is actually performant and secure, but we need to empower a ton of people to build a ton more things, try them out, figure out what works, and then scale that up across the country. We'll have tens of thousands of Democratic candidates across the country in coming years. We can, at low cost, help all of them to do amazing things that help us win up and down the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Wickler.
Well, thank you so much for all of your time and your thoughtful responses today. As technology and media play an increasingly pivotal role in our politics, the next DNC chair has the unique opportunity to propel our party forward, a change that's desperately needed in winning 2026 and beyond. We know and heard from a lot of you today that technology can no longer be treated as a separate issue. It's got to be integrated into every part of our strategy. And we hope you'll keep this in mind as you build your vision for the DNC.
Candidates, it's been wonderful getting to know all of you over the past 2 months, and I am sure you're relieved this will all wrap up on Saturday. This job of DNC chair, it's a big one, with a lot riding on your shoulders to lead us out of this difficult period in American history. Whichever one of you wins, I wish you the vision and the fortitude to guide us forward, bravery in the face of the inevitable attacks on you by the president, and the courage to always stand up for what's right. See you in National Harbor. Good job.